Greetings, all you Jackson Jennets, and welcome to your daily dose of donkey with Ginger. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, coming to you. I'm going to release this on Friday or Saturday, but I'm doing it on Wednesday, so if any crazy news happens between now and then, don't blame me too much. Had to do a pre recording, going on vacation. But it's time for Steelers talk, so let's get into it. The Steelers do have some news reporting to training camp. There's a couple players we'll talk about later, but first and foremost, the signing of a running back who played a little bit last year with the Tennessee Titans, and that Jeremy McNichols will be coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers to take the spot formerly held by Trey Edmonds. That's right, little running back brother of Terrell Edmonds. So now the Steelers only have three sets of brothers remaining. The fourth set got broken up, unfortunately, I guess. I mean, Edmonds always produced decently well when he saw the field, but didn't see the field very often. So maybe McNichols could be a backup that can go in there and do some things for the Steelers. Let's hope for that. Other camp news upon reporting was Tyson Alualu's put on the PUP list, as he's not ready to go yet from last year's injury. Larry Ogunjobi's been limited at the very beginning, recovering from his foot injury as well. And new to the thing on the not football injury list, the NFI, is going to be Minkah Fitzpatrick, who apparently hurt his wrist and has some tenderness because he fell off a bike in the offseason. Not the greatest start to the thing, but hey, you'd rather have him have the injuries early than late in the year, so here's hoping everything else goes well. Not much else to see from the first day of camp. All the people played. I think it same way as the training camp in terms of the quarterbacks, who's getting what reps, but we'll see how that goes throughout the year. Now, let's get into what we said we were going to cover this week, which is ranking the AFC North defense. We're going to break it into the front seven and the secondary, and it's going to be broken the front seven because the pass rush and run defense and coverage are three completely different things in the front seven. So I'm going to put that all as one, and then secondaries is kind of an apple-to-apple comparison. The reason the front seven's so different for all teams is we have two teams that run a 3-4 and two teams that run a 4-3, so it makes it a little different. So we'll just put the front seven all together rather than defensive line to defensive line and that. And I think it's about, you could say, three position groups there. You have inside linebackers, outside linebackers, defensive linemen. So we'll break it into that. Let's start first off with the front seven pass rush, and nod has to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, come on now. This is just a team that's led the NFL in sacks in, two straight seasons and just absolutely has it going on. There's nothing left to be said there. I mean, you have a pass rush that's led. And let's go over the Steelers front seven. We'll mention them all here in the first time around. You're looking at a front seven with outside linebackers of T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith. It's going to be backed up by Tuska or Avery, most likely, is the number one. The defensive ends are Cam Hayward or Chris Wormley are the returning starters. Who knows if Ogunjobi's going to play at end or tackle. Tackle is going to be either Ogunjobi or Alualu, and Adams, who we brought in last year from New Orleans, is a big factor in there in the middle. So you're looking at a pretty solid defensive line, great outside linebackers at the starters in terms of rushing the passer, at least with Watt being otherworldly and Highsmith being functional, which is all you need. And then I look for an improvement in the inside linebackers with Devin Bush and Miles Jack, clearly, in my opinion, an improvement. And then you have Marcus Allen and Robert Spillane as the backups there. Number two, pass rush for me has to go to the Cleveland Browns. You're talking defensive ends out here. They run the 4-3, obviously, of Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. They traded for Chase Winovich to add depth there. Two really good defensive ends. When you get to the inside, you have Jordan Elliott, Tavon Bryan, and then I think Perion Winfrey is their number one guy off the depth there. Not bad, not great. That's why they're not there with the Steelers. And then their outside linebackers are more athletic guys who are better at coverage. When you look at Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I loved him in the second round last year. You have Sonoe Takitaki, and Takitaki always seemed to intercept Roethlisberger. I remember that. Anthony Walker Jr., a good coverage guy there, which is why you'll probably see the Browns pretty high in coverage when I talk about them in terms of the front seven. Third, I have to go with a team that was impressive last year, and that's your Cincinnati Bengals. Yes, your Cincinnati Bengals. Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson played great last year. Chris Sample, Joseph Osai coming off the end also played pretty good. DJ Reader and BJ Hill up the middle were playing good. They added Tyler Shelvin, who's more of a run stopper, has played well there. And then their outside linebackers, that's Logan Wilson, probably my favorite linebacker in the AFC North, the way he was able to play last year. They also have the other side from him is Akeem Davis-Gaither, pretty athletic dude. Jermaine Pratt also plays a lot there. When you look at that, that's a pretty solid linebacking crew there. But in terms of pass rush, I vote him third, and that's just purely because it's stacked. And honestly, the Baltimore Ravens might end up with the second best pass rusher in the division in Odafe Owe. And I loved him coming out of the draft out of Penn State, just a physical freak, for lack of a better word, playing outside linebacker. They also have Justin Houston still there, Tyus Bowser, pretty good one, plus his name's Bowser. That's pretty cool. The defensive line for them is Matabuke at the end with Calais Campbell backed up by McKenzie as their main one. And their defensive tackles are Michael Pierce, good run stopper, and Travis Jones. Middle linebackers there is Josh Burns and Patrick Queen. Queen showed some things, but also a lot of getting beat when it came to rushing. And the reason the Ravens come in fourth here isn't really anything against them. I just don't see the all-around pass rush the other three teams have, because the other three teams have a great pass rush, although I think Owe, like I said, might be the second best pass rusher in the division. Let's get into run defense. It's going to be a little different here. I think the Cleveland Browns have the best run defense in the division. I believe that Myles Garrett, and more specifically to me, the one who's the best pass rusher or run stopper in this division, in my opinion, is I can't think of his name now. We just talked about him. Clowney, Jadeveon Clowney. I believe he's the best pass rusher out there in terms of stopping the run. And I like what they have in the middle. I do. And I just think that front seven plays really well against the run this year. Second best against the run, I have to go with the Cincinnati Bengals. What can you say about that team? They played great last year. Their defense played great. It was underrated, and that's what got them there. I think Wilson's the best linebacker in the division, so I give them the heads up there in the front seven run coverage. I put the Steelers above the Ravens here because I feel the Steelers, if Alualu and Ogunjobi are healthy, have a better front seven against the run this year than they did last year, and I feel like the Ravens' defense is just taking a step back. I just don't see those scary guys playing linebacker that used to be there in Baltimore, but I see them in Pittsburgh. Now, when you go to the front seven and coverage, this is where it gets weird. I obviously had to put the Bengals number one. I love what they're able to do there. Then it's the Browns and Steelers, and this is more like a 2A, 2B. I'm not sure who I go with. I'm going with the Steelers on the pure fact I think Miles Jack down year last year was a fluke of just being with a bad team. And good time for Devin Bush to make an interception. I think Devin Bush steps up this year, and I think it's going to show. So I have the Steelers coming in 2 in front 7 coverage, Cleveland Browns coming in 3, obviously, and the Baltimore Ravens coming in 4, as they seem to be my seller team when it comes to the front 7, as I'm just not overly impressed with their front 7, although they have a couple good young pieces that I think will, keep climbing the ladder. I just don't think they're quite there yet. So let's get into the secondary. We'll just start with the Steelers secondary because the Steelers are the secondary I like. You have Ahkello Witherspoon, Cam Sutton, Levi Wallace, and James Pierre probably as the top 4 corners, with I think Witherspoon and Wallace working the outside and Sutton working in, but maybe Sutton works the outside and Wallace works the slot. Who knows? You also have Terrell Edmonds, Minkah Fitzpatrick out there as safety. Terrell Edmonds, to me, is the most underrated defensive player in this division. I love what he did last year. I thought he took huge steps. Was there still glares in there, or glaring bad times in there? Yeah, but I felt he really took huge steps forward to becoming consistent. And don't sleep on DeMonte Kazi getting in some sub packages and maybe getting that ball hawking he used to have in Atlanta. You get to Cleveland Browns, you get the best corner in the division, Denzel Ward, no doubt about it. You put him by Greg Newsome II and Greedy Williams as the other corners, pretty good there. Grant Delfitz played a pretty good strong safety, and he's going to start over Rodney Harrison Jr., giving him good depth there. And then they have John Johnson III out there, and I love that signing as a free safety, but he didn't really fit well last year, and that's what seemed to happen is a lot of these Browns players just didn't seem to fit the defense, which I'll get into why they're not ranked as high as they are, because on paper they probably are the best, but it just didn't seem like they fit, and I just don't know if they're going to fit this time around. And then you get to Cincinnati Bengals. You're talking Chidi Awuzie, who had a great year last year's out there. Mike Hilton in the slot, solid. Eli Apple's where you can attack on the other corner, outside corner out there. I mean, Von Bell plays a great safety. Jesse Bates, as long as he doesn't hold out, was huge for them last year, and that secondary is a kind of scary part. And you get to Baltimore, a lot of people high on Kyle Hamilton. I don't know. Notre Dame draft picks, especially on secondary, make me think you have to look at them hard. Marcus Williams had some struggles last year. Marlon Humphrey is an absolute stud. Marcus Peters, feast or famine, and then you got the slot battle between Amore Davis and Kayvon Seymour. See what happens there. But if we're going to go ahead and get into ranking these guys, I think based off the way they played last year, the Bengals have to be rated your number one secondary. I just love what they did. Bates was such a good leader. Awuzie was a shutdown guy, and having a shutdown guy is huge. The reason the Steelers, to me, don't get there, because I actually like their safety pairing of Fitzpatrick and Edmonds the best, and then Kazi I think is going to be a really good sub-package guy. The reason they don't get there is I just don't see the shutdown corner. Maybe Keelu Witherspoon can show those 3 games weren't a fluke, but I don't see the shutdown corner. That's why the Steelers slide to 2 here. For me, the reason the Browns go to 3 is even though I think they, on paper, have the most talented secondary, it just never seems to translate into the field, and that's concerning because they had a good pass rush last year, and they still struggled at times stopping quarterbacks and all throwing the ball down the field. And with the talent they had there, it just didn't make sense why that was a thing, but that's what happened. And I'm sorry, Baltimore, but you get 4th again because it's not even that Baltimore's defense isn't talented, because I think Baltimore has a top 15 in the range, somewhere probably between 13 and 18 in terms of defense this year. If you were to rank the whole NFL, I think they're 13 and 18. But I think this is one of those situations, much like the AFC West, where being the worst isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, I think Derek Carr's the worst quarterback in the AFC West. I might also think Derek Carr's a top 10 quarterback when you consider he's behind Patrick Mahomes, definitely a top quarterback, Justin Herbert, definitely a top quarterback, and Russell Wilson, definitely still a top quarterback. You're talking they might have 4 top 10 quarterbacks in that division. I think the AFC North might have 4 top 10 defenses. It's very possible. All these teams are stacked. All these teams have a really good defense, and it could make for a great division for a while to come. I think Baltimore is probably the weakest defense when you look at it on paper, as they don't excel great in anything yet, but they have so much talent in so many positions. If they can, obviously, the key for any of these teams is you have to stay healthy for it to work. So then let's get into total defensive rankings. For me, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers as your number 1. And when you look at it, we had them as a first place, 2 second places, and a third place. So Steelers come in number 1. I have your Bengals coming in number 2 with 2 first places, a second and a third, but I think their third was a lot farther than the 2 Steelers seconds going into it. You got your Browns at 3. And your Baltimore Ravens at 4. That's the way I would rank them. And I would say you could possibly see 4 top 15 defenses, so top half of the league defenses coming from the AFC North, and the potential for 4 top 10 defenses. But then again, you have to see how the schedules play out and how everything works. But hey, looks like AFC North is getting back to old school rock of sock of defensive football with a good defenses going all around. And let's hope the Steelers live up to all the hype I'm giving them here on this one. Won't be with you for a little while as I'm going on vacation, but we won't miss a week of episodes, so that's a cool thing. I guess it's time for me to get to my shout-out. My shout-out this week's got to go to the wee little quarterback, as they like to call him. Kyler Murray getting a huge contract, but the reason my shout-out goes here is because Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals have he has to study film clause in his contract, and that might be the dumbest thing ever, to invest in someone you don't think studies enough film, and for him to accept that, saying, yeah, I know I don't study the film, but I'll take the money, becomes the second highest paid quarterback as a guy that apparently no one believes studies film. So my shout out has to go to that whole situation, because it's just funny to me, and I can't believe that's a thing that's really happening in the NFL. Guess it's time to let you know I am the Viking Donkey. That's Viking_Donkey on Twitch and Twitter. Your daily dose of donkey with Ginger's, the YouTube channel where you can reach, leave a comment, leave a follow, leave a like. Tell us what you thought about the rankings. Leave me your rankings. Maybe we'll do some comparisons. Let me know of any future content you would like to see. And Donk Nation, Steeler Nation, training camp's upon us. Wave them if you got them. Here we go.